Hi guys and welcome back to Grand Prix for Hearthstone here at DreamHack Summer in Jönköping. My name is Nimshad. I'm here with Lothar and Solo to bring you the next round of top 16. This time it's RDU versus Guukboii. So guys, RDU, we know about him. What do we know about Guukboii?
Well, basically we know he's a good player. That's what I know. When it
Yeah,
comes to his past achievements, I have seen his name,
Right.
usually in open qualifiers. I think I played it against him when I was playing more, so that was quite a time ago. But he is doing decent in this tournament, and he already played against RDU in the Swiss portion.
Did he win?
No, it was 3-1 for RDU, so he has some moral discomfort here. But of course, he wants to win this match and get some redemption, right?
Yeah, again, like much like Tomoff in the previous series, Guukboii is one of those names that if you've played a lot of online tournaments, you've run into. Like you said, I'm pretty sure I've played him in an open qualifier or an online Gfinity tournament or something as well in the past. So he's definitely a name that's been around. But as you said, RDU is the big name in this matchup, and he's the guy with the interesting quirk in his lineup as well, with that tempo mage that there's been a lot of talk about rumbling around. He, at least himself, says that tempo mage is the nuts in this tournament, and that like everyone else who hasn't brought it is wrong, and he's solved the meta, etc.
Well,
Classic RDU stuff.
Yeah. I was talking to him a bit before the match, and he actually told me that he is favored versus everyone in this top 16, apart from Stanodachi, but Stanodachi is eliminated already. But talking about the big players, let's see the bracket and who is actually through and what are the results of the top 16. So we can see Stanodachi eliminated by Tessen. Tessen going through. He will play versus Hoi tomorrow in the top 8. Hoi going 3-0 versus Orange. Board control 3-0 is a lot of 3-0s. What is happening? Then RDU versus Guukboii is in this match. Boston versus Maverick. Maverick winning. Then Frozen versus Cynics is the next match after this. And we already have the winner with Slack, Mangolicious, and Super JJ Namcor.
So basically we are left with 2 matches in that top 16 before we move to next day, which will be tomorrow here in Jönköping for the top 8.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And RDU and Guukboii playing for the privilege of fighting Ball Control, who we saw victorious in the previous series. But as you said, suddenly the 3-0s are creeping out. We didn't see a great deal of them in the Swiss portion, but suddenly we're starting to see those punishes for the people who say, nah, I don't need to ban Shaman.
Exactly
it's
what
good.
I want to say. I was talking to my friend. We were watching the tournament in Twitch Lounge, and he was like, so what's the best class currently in Hearthstone? I'm like, Shaman. And then he sees the screen, and it's like Shaman versus Shaman. And he's like, so why no one is banning it?
Right.
And I'm like, they seem to be confident with bringing Zoo and Warrior against the Shaman, but it doesn't work out all the time, right? And then get punished.
It is similar to the times where Patron was the strongest deck, and people were banning Patron, and then after some time they were like, yeah, I can counter Patron. And suddenly they were losing against Patron really badly. Shaman is definitely the strongest deck in the tournament, and let's hope that we'll not see many more 3-0s with the Shaman. That we have some more interesting decks to see, and the Tempo Mage from RDU is one of those decks that's really interesting. So what is in the deck, Lothar?
With this, we talked about this like a long time already, and it's the double Flame Strike, something that we didn't consider that should be in the deck at all. Then we have seen one, and like, okay, that's interesting, right? The metagame might be actually kind of revolving around board controls, so Flame Strike makes sense, right? But then the second one popped up, and it's like, oh my, why would you play the 2 of them, right? And we asked RDO about it, and he said, well, no one expects the first one, so they don't expect the second one as well. I'm like, okay, that's solid logic.
Yeah, I mean, but he also said, when he was testing it, he was playing it on ladder. Every time he drew Flame Strike, he was like, this is great. Like, I want a Flame Strike right now. So he just felt like having 2 in the deck. It was always a card that he wanted to draw. So there's a mantra that says, you put 2 copies of something because you want to always draw 1. It's the same logic with Doomhammer. You very rarely want 2 Doomhammers in a game, but you want to always draw 1 of them.
It's definitely a sound logic. But the game is starting, so have fun, guys, casting.
Thank you, Nimsh, and we are starting with the Shaman versus Rogue, something that Rogue doesn't want to see at all, especially with a Shaman that runs double Doomhammers, as you just mentioned.
Yes, indeed. And that one Doomhammer, as we mentioned, if they are able to draw one, is very often enough to get the job done single-handedly. That's 16 unanswerable damage. That's over half the life total. So all you need is a little bit of chip damage to go through from a couple of minions early, and then say 1 lava burst to add to it at the end, and that is job done already. So Doomhammer is just so single-handedly game-winning that it's a matchup where most of the time you just snap keep it in your opening hand.
Yeah, I would definitely keep it against Rogue every single time, even if I'm going first.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I'd have a long, hard think about that. You know, I'd keep it maybe if I had like a 1-drop already, and like, but otherwise I'd probably mulligan for a bit more initiative. But definitely on the coin, I'm keeping Doomhammer all the time.
So, RDU windmill slammed the Totem Golem on turn 1 with the coin to curve out with Argent Squire or Sir Finley on turn 2, so you can also play second Totem Golem and another 1-drop on turn 3. Seems like a perfect curve with the Overload being used with the, I would say, best outcome, right? And what are the answers from Rogue against that? Basically, would need a backstab and an agent to at least solve one problem.
Yeah, I mean that would not be. I mean that would be the perfect answer, but it's a rare combination of two cards, and as you said, on curve there's just very little way to deal with this. Of course, you need a way to combo the Eviscerate, which is the on curve answer to it, so that's unlikely as well. But from RDU side here, I'd be thinking Argent Squire in his shoes, because that way, say if there's just a tempo 3-3 here, say if there's a Farseer being played or like an SI just for board, if there's no backstab to combo it, suddenly you have the Flame Tongue Totem to tempo out with the Argent Squire, and then you can develop the Finley alongside that. So I like the decision here to go with the Argent Squire. This makes perfect sense to me.
Definitely correct, and Argent Squire, especially against Rogues with all those 3-drops, right? Both Agents and Farseers are so vulnerable to basically any 1-drop from Shaman.
Right.
Shadow Strike is one of the answers that we didn't talk about when it comes to Totem Golem, but the second one will still be a problem. Oh wait, now which one is better here? You know that the Tusker Totemic is quite, I would say, and might be really easy answered by a single backstab.
Right.
We didn't see it before, but RDU knows that there was no clear turn when the backstab should have been used, right? So there's no way of knowing if there's the backstab in the hand.
Yeah, and I just like the Feral Spirits in general here, because you're protecting your Argent Squire just naturally from the second charge of that dagger that's staring you in the face. You know, you can think about what they may or may not have in terms of their hand, whether, you know, backstabs, eviscerates, SI7 agents, fan of knives, etc. But you know, the problem glaring you in the face right now is there's a 1/1 dagger that's about to take out your 1/1 minion, and while you have a Flame Tongue Totem in your hand, you kind of want every minion that you can sticking around on the board.
Yep. Agree. And now RDU is facing a really awkward turn, because first of all, that Violet Teacher is one of the threats in the Rogue deck that can actually make a difference. Every single minion that will be generated from the spells is basically used as a trade with your own forces, and the problem is RDU is not playing any kind of AoE effects.
Right.
Double check. No lightning storms. So that Violet Teacher has a big red dot on his forehead to be executed right away. But the problem is, if you do that, then you sacrifice a lot of resources, and it's a really an awkward turn.
Yeah, you give up your entire board, right? There's no other way to deal with it apart from the Flame Tongue Totem, then you're just left with a singular Flame Tongue Totem, still with a 1/1 remaining on the board. So definitely seems too costly on this turn to deal with the Violet Teacher. So I think you have to let it get at least one more turn's worth of value here. Probably just pick up value trades on the board to make the most aggressive, the most aggressive play you can, which is the Totem Golem. And the good news for RDU, at least, is although there is still a couple more good tools here, so the preparation is a pretty good draw. But despite the Fan of Knives and the Edwin Van Cleef, Leroy and Coldblood weren't really going to get the job done. But the now ability to generate a bunch of 1/1s on the board and generate a huge Edwin Van Cleef at the same time means that possibly the Leroy and the Coldblood is now just going to get the job done very quickly.
Yeah, and this is one of the scenarios when it gets out of hand pretty quickly. And the Rogue is taking initiative. Although he got some damage in the early turns, now it looks like he's in full control.
Yeah, I mean, Horse Rider is a pickup that lets him deal with the Violet Teacher, but there is a much bigger problem right now, which is a 6/6 Van Cleef that he's really not able to race in this situation. If he was not having the overload here and was able to equip a Doomhammer, then that would be one thing. Maybe there's a world where you can race this if you had an extremely bursty hand, but otherwise that 6/6 is just going to threaten to decrease your clock by so many turns that, you know, how do you address this as RDU? Do you try and make a kind of last gasp grab for the board at this point, or is there any hope of you dragging this board control back?
I don't think so. It's like a really every single scenario here is not a perfect solution for RDU. Hex would be ideal, of course, but he's not running that. So what he can do is actually count on drawing additional damage from his deck and use that as a clear for the advantage. So just ignore it for now and get the best possible value from the draws that you will get. But
oh
my
boy.
God. Okay, so I wanted to say that the Leroy is a really huge turn, especially that you have means to trade with the 1/1s and you have your dagger up as well to kill the Argent Horse Rider. So you most likely your Leroy will live a turn. Before that, of course, the hero power was popped. But in this situation, I would just say, yeah, let's go for it. Let's play this Leroy Jenkins, deal 14 damage to the face, and conceal.
I think it's better to just dagger up Deadly Poison, Cold Blood, like play all the other cards and just keep Leroy for the following turn. Because that way you can actually deal with the board really efficiently as well. You can spread out your damage, you're still pushing, what, 10 this turn? 11 with the 2 attacks. You can trade out the 2/1 as well this way. You still have that conceal. You're still threatening lethal with the Leroy on the following turn. So I think this is slightly more consistent than just giving your opponent the minions with the Leroy on the previous turn.
Yeah, definitely right. This is way better. So now double Tusker Totemic, and just hope for the best.
Double Tusker Totemic and just pray for double Taunt Totem. That's the plan. That's a Totem Golem, which looks fantastic, but isn't going to get the job done right now. So attempt number 2 for a Taunt Totem right now, which he might think will save him, but we can see will not. There will be 17 damage going to the face after the dagger has taken out the Taunt Totem. So very quickly, Guukboii is going to go out to a lead here, and he just got one of those rogue draws that crushes aggro, where you got good early removal, good prep draw, Edwin Van Cleef for pressure, and then just burn, 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 kill you.
That prep was actually insanely valuable. Without that prep, he would not be able to play the Fan of Knives and combo it with Edwin to be a 6/6. Basically, he had 5 mana, right? He didn't have access to card. So by playing the prep, he was able to play the spell, play the Edwin, which was the means here to win the game. Otherwise, what was the turn for turn 5?
It just would have been Fan of Knives to clear and redagger, basically, which would have been okay. You know,
it's
the Violet Teacher was still generating value, but it was nowhere near as swingy. And, you know, who knows, maybe that gave RDU the extra turn to pick up a Doomhammer, and then suddenly the race is on. So, yeah, that preparation was absolutely huge. And RDU is now going to have to resort to his Hunter to try and knock out this Rogue. And now the Rogue has won the bad matchup in terms of the Shaman. Suddenly it's in a good position. Winning bad matchups in Last Hero Standing is so huge because like you basically you've already beaten the deck that they want to counter queue you with. So like where do they go from there? So if you can pick up an unfavorable win such as that, you're going to put yourself in a really strong position to make one of your decks a 2-win deck. And as soon as you do that, you're heavily favored to win the series.
Yep, completely agree. Guukboii is definitely looking great in this match. From the beginning, winning the Rogue was like the Rogue was the weak link in his lineup. So now, by getting just that one win and first of all knocking out the Shaman as well, is a huge step forward for him to win the entire match. When it comes to the Rogue from Guukboii, is there any odd choice here? Let's see, double backstab preparations. No, that's not the stuff.
And one Shiv is not always put in there, but I want to talk about RDU's Hunter deck as well, because there's been a little bit of a tug of war in terms of tournament Hunter lists, and it's, you know, whether you play Camels, whether you play High Mains, Unleash or no Unleash, like people have been playing around with the build a lot, and the High Main has been one of the biggest points of contention because it's such a powerful minion, but it does get punished really, really effectively by Hex and Sap. And Rogue and Shaman are 2 of the classes that you run into very, very commonly. Mid-range Shaman, not so much these days, but used to be a big deal, you know, a week or so ago, you know, back in the distant past of the Hearthstone metagame. So people have been cutting High Mains or people have been running High Mains, but RDU has come down in the middle ground. He's actually running a single Savannah High Main, which is not something that I've actually seen too much.
Yeah, well, it makes sense in that tournament meta, as you said yourself. The fact that the Savannah High Main can be single-handedly punished by the 1 Sap, and you lose entire game because of a 2-mana spell, doesn't sound great, right?
It does not.
And I think that you said actually before that Stranglehold Tigers actually almost deals the same damage, and it's just a turn faster.
Just
right?
gets him in the face a turn earlier, yeah.
Seems like a good choice. By the way, because the players have the access to the deck list, Guukboii is 100% sure that this is a freezing trap. Unless RDU cheated and put something else.
Yeah, in which case this series is over. RDU is disqualified. We'll move on. No. So yeah, this is going to be a freezing trap, but this is a bit of a whiff from RDU here. Another point of contention is the Infested Wolf, which some people don't like. And again, RDU is only playing one of them, so he's a little bit light on the 4 drops. Does have the 2 Houndmasters that he could have drawn here as well, which wouldn't be perfect, but would at least be something to develop. But
well, he could have drawn on one of his Desert Camels as well.
Sure.
Which is a great 3-drop or 4-drop. To be honest, in this matchup, it's actually a great job for whatever turn, right? From the turn 3 up, you're always happy to draw the Desert Camel because it brings so much value.
Yep, and I like this decision here from RDU, choosing not to just play out the Fiery Bat to essentially deal 3 damage to the Rogue, because he has things like Houndmaster in his deck that he wants to activate. He has a kill command in his hand that he wants to activate. He's going to play a Stranglethorn Tiger on the next turn almost all of the time, which means he's going to have a beast to activate in the near future, but in the long term, having that cheap beast in his hand is probably worth more value than just the 3 damage to face it would do right now.
Yep, I agree. Has also the chance of just top decking a Houndmaster and just playing it in turn 5 with the Houndmaster as well, if you would not prefer playing the Stranglehold Tiger. But I would say that it's way better to just play the Tiger into 5 anyway. But there's an option. Another Edwin Van Cleef, which is again a 6/6. So most likely it might... Oh, that's a whiff. That's a terrible draw for RDU. Both 1-drops already in hand when he's playing 3 1-drops and 2 Desert Camels. So if he draws the last one, basically Desert Camels are a horrible card. So they're way worse than Carrion Grub.
Yep.
And the more important thing is that he is actually whiffing on the draw. It's like I didn't draw a single thing in this matchup especially.
Right. So the big question here is, do you let this 6/6 interrupt you playing Tiger on curve? Because as you said, you have Freezing Trap up. You don't have to be concerned about this 6/6, but while you have this glorious Deadly Shot, do you want to take it? Because there's multiple considerations here. One, Tiger's just on curve. It's the aggressive play. You don't have to worry about Van Cleef. Secondly, Deadly Shot is the only answer in your deck to Stealth Gadgetzan Auctioneer. It's the only way you deal with it. It's one of one of the reasons why Deadly Shot came back with a vengeance into this mid-range hunter deck in the standard meta.
Yep, correct. And Guukboii is playing 2 Conceals in his deck. RDU is playing also 2 Deadly Shots, but they're basically 3 targets for the Deadly Shots, like main targets, right?
Yeah.
2 Gadgetzans and the Edwin, most likely. Other targets, of course, like let's say Azure Drakes and Violet Teachers, but Violet Teacher is, I mean, a solo Violet Teacher is not something that you see often.
Oh, very true. So Guukboii now recognizes the little dynamic that's happening here with the Freezing Trap, plays out the Blood Mage Thalnos and says, if you want to stop this Blood Mage from popping the Freezing Trap, then you have to sink some damage into it. At the bare minimum, you have to use a Bow Charge to get rid of a 1/1. So at the same time, it cycles him a card, gets him closer to powerful Auctioneer things. He has that Auctioneer Conceal lined up for turn 7 right now, but can speed that up if he draws preparations, or he can just pick up more cheap spells for the turn following the Auctioneer Conceal. So dual purpose here for the Blood Mage, both being annoying against that Freezing Trap and cycling through his deck a bit quicker. But now, with the Tiger developed, now we have the choice to Deadly Shot again, and we don't really have anything better to do this turn.
Yep, especially with another withdraw, because that Ego Hombo is practically pointless in this scenario. You not replace your weapon. You want to curve out with the 1-drops that are sitting useless for the entire turn, entire game, especially after your opponent played the Deadly Poison. So it's not ideal to swing with the Deadly Poisoned Dagger at a 2/1 minion, right? Which could have been just dealt with the non-upgraded dagger.
So, Shadow Strike SI7 Agent looks like a turn this turn.
I mean, the Kvaldu plays around backstab, but...
Yeah, yeah, very true. But the backstabs in hand are just powerful with the Gadgetzan Auctioneer right now anyway. So, Shadow Strike SI is great for a number of reasons. Like I said, it preserves those 0-mana backstabs to go with your Auctioneer. You've just seen a Deadly Shot go off, so you think your Gadgetzan Auctioneer Conceal is going to stick. On top of that, you now have an SI7 agent looking into a Freezing Trap, which means the second charge of this bow is probably going to have to be used to get rid of it, because even a 5-mana SI7 agent in hand is sometimes an effective card if you just really need a removal option.
Yeah, especially when you have access to preparations, right? So that 2 mana is not really that big of a difference when you can squeeze in a spell for 3 mana. So basically, you're still curving out better.
Yeah. Of course, there's a long-term value to this freezing trap, because if RDU can just continue killing everything that the rogue plays here, not only are you denying things like Cold Blood with the freezing trap, but if the board's clear, you're also just stopping Leroy from ever coming out and dealing damage to you. But that dream is about to be over very soon, because Gadgetzan Conceal comes out. Unless there's exactly Deadly Shot number 2 on this turn, which there is not, then suddenly Miracle Rogue things are about to happen.
That's true, but at the same time, it doesn't look that bad for RDU. Look at this. 5 damage to the face this turn, right?
Yep.
That's 16 HP. You have access to Kill Command and to the bow, which is ideally 9 because of the fact that you have a freezing trap and you have 3 turns to kill your opponent. Is it possible to deal 21 damage in 3 turns when you have 5 on board, 9 in the bow, so that's 14, 19 with the Kill Command and the hero power, 1 hero power. That's basically what you need to win this game if your opponent won't play a Farseer. Let's check how many Farseers
there are 0 Farseers.
0 Farseers. Well, that's kind of straightforward then.
Certainly is. So the damage is committed, and on top of that, Huge Toad comes down, which has a chance of just doing the 1 damage single-handedly. Even if it gets removed, it can fire that 1 damage off at face, and then he's down at 10. Suddenly, Fiery Back, Kill Command, Hero Power, second Bow Charge will get the job done. So I don't think we're going to see RDU play the Fiery Back here. It just seems essential to have that Kill Command activator. Your opponent has an Auctioneer on the board. Your board is going to disappear. It's always going to happen. You haven't seen any backstabs used.
I'm really surprised by that Firebat being played right now, especially since RDU has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9... Sorry, 8 beasts that he can play and pair it up with Kill Command left in the deck.
8?
Yes.
Oh, that's actually a lot, to be fair. That is a lot of draws that are live for the Kill Command.
There's a lot of other draws that are not a beast.
Yeah, sure. But, I mean, for a perspective, let's try and stand in RDU's shoes for a second here. That Gadgetzan Auctioneer can't attack. So even with the cycle power that's going to come out here, how hard is it for the Rogue to deal with a 5-5, a 2-1, and a 3-2 without taking any damage? It's pretty difficult, right, when the minion on board can't actually attack to pick up a trade. So maybe he was just thinking, well, I just get a minion to stick to the board here. Because even in the world where he held back for the Kill Command, he still needed that Huge Toad damage to hit face to be guaranteed.
It's actually lethal for Guukboii next turn. That's 12, 15, 21 damage. So there's the beast.
Yep. But he is 1 damage short. However, what he can do now is just essentially take out both Cold Bloods from the game, because they've both been invested into this Gadgetzan Auctioneer to cycle with the intention of, freezing the SI7 agent on the following turn, or, hoping to get this damage to go through. And he can remove that possibility entirely by just Kill Commanding it out of the game. So he's giving himself some time here.
Yeah, and he's killing the Gadgetzan Auctioneer. So basically, those 2 Cold Bloods did 0 damage. Which is interesting. And I would say that the Kill Command might have a different target, so basically face.
Yeah.
If
different target.
If he knew that his opponent doesn't play, his opponent might play Farseers in his deck.
Sure. Yeah, but he can play for time here to an extent. He's the one with the inevitability. Like you said, no Farseer, so if he gets to press this hero power button enough times, then that's just going to end the game. But Guukboi's hand is just stacked full of value right now, and now he's generating 1/1s on the board, and there's no Unleash the Hounds to possibly come out and answer this. So, I mean, RDU right now is looking at Call of the Wild or Bust, I believe, in terms of 1 card that ends this game. Well, Animal Companion for Huffer exactly would have done it as well.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Another chance to draw a card with the Alec. Let's see if it actually gives him a card this time. Nope. Another whiff on the Joust. How much damage does Guukboii has? 3, 5, 9, 12, 16, 17, 23, 22, actually.
which is, last time I checked, a larger number than 18. So RDU is in a world of trouble here. He's going to consider whether or not he wants to play the Fiery Bat. Similar decision to what we had a couple of turns ago. The value of that potential 1 extra damage, the value of the extra minion on the board versus the potential of the kill command draw, Hound Master draw, all of this kind of stuff. So he's going to, as quickly as he can, run through all the mathematical calculations necessary to decide which of these is just statistically the best play, but it's all going to be irrelevant because he is simply dead.
Yep. Unfortunately for RDU, Violet Teacher makes enough of a difference to render the freezing trap useless.
Yeah, Seal number 2 is drawn. Much of an irrelevancy. Leroy Jenkins eviscerate all the damage in the world, has him more than covered here. RDU is in a world of hurt, but let's remember, RDU has been talking up his tempo mage this entire tournament. He has said it's the nuts. He said everyone who isn't bringing that deck's made a mistake. He said that the meta was easy to read for this tournament, that he predicted it, he brought the right lineup, and that tempo mage was a key part of that. So he has now got to fall back on that deck that he's had so much faith in, and the deck that confused us the first time we saw it, the double Flame Strike Yogg-Saron Tempo Mage.
And a Falnos. A Falnos is in the deck.
Yeah.
We have double Azudrix, of course, but there's also one Faceless Summoner, which is an odd choice in current metagame as well, right? So a Ragnar's is there as well. And a Yogg, of course.
And a Yogg, of course, yeah. But it's a strange balance between the kind of very aggressive list that Hotform has been playing recently to great success on ladder, taking rank 1 legend, and the kind of slower list that people were messing around with when standard first dropped. You know, there's no Kabbalist Tome, for example, which was making an appearance in the slower list. You know, synergizes with Yogg-Saron, that people were trying that kind of thing out. But the aggressive list, although it features things like Blood Mage for additional cycle, additional damage when you can pull together burst combos, it plays a higher curve than that because that list tops out at Azure Drake and then just has that random Yogg at the end. So he's found this kind of hybrid list where he's playing the Flame Strikes, he's playing the Rag, he's prepared to go to the late game, but he still has like all the 1-mana cards to have the most aggressive start possible.
Yep. Now let's see what will be the start for RDU. Well, he has basically a few options. First of all, he has enough luck to have the Mana Vim in his opening hand, which is a card similar to, let's say, Vorax and Innervate when it comes to win ratios for the Tempo Mage. But the fact is that you are playing against a Rogue. So what are the options of the Rogue clearing the Mana Vim when you played unprotected? Because he kept the Mirror Image in his opening hand. So he is now thinking, should I play Mana Vim Coin, Mirror Image, play around Backstab, Dagger? Basically, that would be the play against the most basic setup, right?
Yep.
Any other options to reflect on?
I mean, you could risk it. You could just play Mana Worm on this turn, and then on the following turn you have Sorcerer's Apprentice plus Mirror Image, for example. But there's no real merit to that because your coin kind of gets a little bit stranded. You'll probably then Arcane Intellect the turn afterwards. So I like protecting your Mana Worm right now, but it's a decision that might come down to how much attention you paid at the mulligan, which I'm sure is a lot at this kind of level, and how many cards your opponent kept. Because if they kept a lot of cards, you know they're more likely to have held on to a backstab. If they threw away their whole hand, then you might be inclined to take a riskier play. But this seems like a solid play. You immediately get that 3/3 Mana Worm on board. And again, when I spoke to RDU about this deck, he said that his win rate with spiraling Mana Worms early was huge, and that he won a lot of games by just drawing double Mana Worm, beating people up with like 6 attack Mana Worms on turn 3, etc.
I just wanted to say that there's an option to clear that Mana Worm this turn. It's a really huge investment, and you clear also one Mirror Image, so maybe it's not that bad, but it's really aggressive, right?
It certainly is. I mean, did he have to go all the way through that? He doesn't have anything to do right now on turn 3 anyway, so he could have just backstabbed the Mana Worm and then just left it there to be able to Fan of Knives on the following turn. But I guess he cycles a card with the Fan, so he has a decent chance of trying to pick up something to do on turn 3, like Fan of Knives number 2.
Oh my!
From the top, but this is a 0 Farseer list, remember, so his chances of drawing a 3-mana play are actually diminished from a regular Rogue list. So that was a very aggressive use of preparation.
That was a ballsy play, I would say.
Right. But it paid off. I mean, second Fan was the perfect answer there to pick up, and now this is one of those kind of awkward-looking Tempo Mage hands where you almost feel like you want to Arcane Intellect, because You know, Mana Worm Ping Face doesn't feel great. Mana Worm Frostbolt Face is a little bit, you know, needlessly aggressive. So he's going to have to try and find his way through. Picks up some spell damage and an Arcane Blast, which is pretty nice.
And this is perfect answer for the Tomb Pillager, especially when you have the second Mana Worm. This is like the perfect combination to get not only the bonus damage on the Arcane Blast, which allows you to clear Tomb Pillager, but as well you're buffing up the attack on the Mana Worm. So huge draw from that Arcane Intellect for RDU. Let's see what will be drawn for that Guukboii. It's WU, so how do you say that? Gook?
Yeah, just pretend they're O's, basically, okay. I think is the plan. But yeah, Shadow Strike is the second copy is picked up, which was kind of important here because the first Shadow Strike might be tempting to use here because you don't really have other clean answers to this board. So if the second one wasn't drawn, suddenly Water Elemental becomes a huge threat because Shadow Strike plus Poke with Dagger is one of the only really efficient ways Rogue has to deal with that. So picking up the Shadow Strike is actually of pretty big importance here, but is this the turn where RDU now decides to flick the switch and just go in? He has the Flamewaker Frostbolt face line here if he wanted to like really just flip the switch and say, okay, we're going face.
I really like that Frostbolt with the Flamewaker. First of all, it fits the mana curve.
Yeah.
Then you have this turn 6 with Water Elemental and Pink. I can understand why Water Elemental will be played because of the fact that you have seen one of the Shadow Strikes.
Right.
But this is one of the turns when it's very similar to what you usually see with the Savannah Hymen, right? And the Zap. It's kind of backbreaking for RDU.
It is a little bit, but the additional spell damage from that Cult Sorcerer is going to come into play here because it makes it so much easier for him to answer this Violet Teacher, and he definitely hasn't mounted enough pressure just yet to be able to go all-out face, so he does have to respect the board development of this Violet Teacher, but Cult Sorcerer is proving to be such an effective card. You know, Tempo Mages were looking for a replacement for Mad Scientist anyway, and this being such an effective card has just kind of felt right at home. I think it's one of only 2 Cthulhu Cultist minions that are considered good enough to play in decks outside Cthulhu decks, the other being Dark Arakoa, which you see in Ramp Druid decks. I can't think of any others. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Disciple of Cthulhu is not that terrible.
Right, no one just slams that in their deck as their
because you have
drop,
Horse
though,
Rider, right? Which shares a similar role.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cult Sorcerer is an amazing card, as you mentioned, is great against basically, wow, that's a really weird turn.
I actually really like that. Now that I look at it, yeah, the problem with the Frostbolt play is that he just kind of ceded all tempo. He didn't really get to develop anything. Now, this line probably telegraphs to Guukboii that there is a Flamewaker in hand because, you know, he knows, like, RDU knows full well what's about to happen here. You know, some spells will be cast, 1/1s will be generated. So Guukboii's going to be looking at RDU's hand and putting him in the range of, say, Flamewaker Arcane Missiles, for example. But, you know, there's not really a lot he can do about it right now. He kind of has to just, you know, use the removal spells he has available to him and just clear the board.
Guukboii is at 18 HP. Which is kind of low.
It really is, yeah. But if I'm remembering RDU's list right, he doesn't play the additional burn of the Forgotten Torches to transform into Roaring Torches, is that right?
Let me check. Let's see the cards that can go face. 2 Arcane Missiles, 2 Frostbolts, 2 Fireballs.
And that's it, right? And
Ragnar's.
Yeah, sure. So he picked up Arcane Intellect, he picked up Mirror Image on this turn, which means he's changed his play from the initial plan of Frostbolt. Also, the makeup of the board just being 1 health minions means that Arcane Intellect into the Mirror Image is pretty effective at clearing it up, and he is starting to threaten some damage. And now that Flame Strike is in hand, which means even if and when this Gadgetzan gets concealed, he does have the Flame Strike to answer it. And because of that, I mean, Guukboii knows this is a double Flame Strike list, so how much do you value just massive Van Cleef right now over just concealing your Gadgetzan?
How massive is it? 1, 2, 3 cards, so it's an 8/8.
Yep.
It's actually quite huge.
It's pretty big.
Yeah.
Means if you're forced to Flame Strike to clear out the Gadgetzan Auctioneer, you're not really odds to be able to kill the 8/8 as well, even with the Flamewaker shots. But the Conceal picks up a Preparation, which picks up Conceal number 2.
Well, you can still play it. You can play Falnose and Conceal.
He's just going to cycle the second Conceal for 0 mana, and he picks up the Eviscerate off it. What?
That is incredible. That is just, I don't know what to say. That is like the best possible play that he could have made.
Sure was. I mean, this Gadgetzan Auctioneer is not long for this world.
Oh my.
But Oh, RDU is making the big boy play here. He's going to play the Rag. He says, you know, if this kills the Auctioneer, great. If it goes face, also pretty solid. At least then I'm on outs to win the game. If I draw a Fireball, I have the Frostbolt in my hand.
Let's analyze this.
Sure.
2 Shadow Strikes.
Yep.
Played.
Yep.
Backstab. Played. Eviscerate. Played from the top of the deck.
1 sap.
1 sap. There's not many answers to that Ragnaros. And you have a Flame Strike. So whatever your opponent does, it gets wrecked by the Flame Strike. So you're...
Sure does.
Well, okay. Edwin is maybe not that wrecked. But you have the Arcane Blast to finish him off. So that means 8 damage to the dome.
Absolutely. I like it. I mean, this Rag is going unanswered here. And like I said, even if he'd left the Auctioneer there and done the 8 damage to face, he sat there with a Frostbolt in hand against a 0 Earthen Ring Farseer list. So he knows if I can just live until I draw a Fireball, then I've got lethal anyway.
Yep.
And now he does get paid out. Guukboii sort of probably got a read from that saying, oh, he probably would have Flame Strike that Gadgetzan, right? Like, he would have Flame Strike the Gadgetzan. I'm just going to play minions, go wide on the board. Got the 6/6 as well to play around Flame Strike to an extent, and the Flame Strike was there to punish.
What were his other options? Like the Gadgetzan didn't have any spells.
Right.
So, kind of useless, right? That was the main thing to do, and even if your opponent has a Flame Strike, you just have to risk it. There's no other way. How can you reply to that Ragnaros that is unchecked, basically?
Yep. And this is one of those rogue hands that's starting to become a little bit linear. He does have the second Gadgetzan Auctioneer that can cycle out any more bricks that he does draw in terms of, you know, preparations, both conceals are used. But suddenly you just have this 14 damage in your hand that doesn't really do anything else except deal 14 damage. You're also staring down a Ragnaros that just threatens to kill you.
Wouldn't you consider playing the Leroy Jenkins, before the Azul pick, playing the Leroy Jenkins just to clear up the Rag? It's like dire straits for him anyway, right?
You know, Leroy cold-blooding into the Rag?
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, maybe you can come back and win the ball back with some, you know, quality minions, Tomb Pillagers, Azure Drakes, etc. in the future, but the line he took is not going to pay out here. He has the Spell Power Frostbolt to take out the Drake, pings the face down to 8 damage, hits end turn, lets Ragnaros do the work, and RDU's favorite deck, RDU's best performing deck in this tournament, is starting to begin the climb back for him. He has to get through a Shaman and a Hunter now.
And those are 2 really efficient decks. And especially the Shaman, right? From what I've talked with RDU, he said that the Mage is favored against the Shaman.
Yep.
I mean, sure, can be, right? But you have some cards that are really awkward in this matchup. Basically, Yogg-Saron, Ragnaros, 2 Flamestrike, Faceless Summoner, Azure Drakes. Those are cards that you don't want to see in the opening hand at all.
You definitely don't, and he's picked up one of them there in the form of Yogg-Saron, but does have Arcane Blast and Arcane Missiles, and if the early games do match up as intended in this particular matchup against the Hunter, then the Tempo Mage outclasses it quite easily because the vanilla minions that come out from the Hunter, just the plain old 3/2s and 2/1s, just get annihilated by Arcane Blasts and Arcane Missiles, etc. And if that's able to tempo out with a Sorcerer's Apprentice or a Mana Worm at the same time, then suddenly it becomes very messy very quickly for the Hunter. But the all-removal hand is not what RDU is going to be looking for. That Sorcerer's Apprentice pickup is huge. That changes the texture of his hand completely now.
Yep, completely agree. I was just wondering, why would he keep the Arcane Missiles in his hand? Because I was just thinking, like, Arcane Blast is more than enough to deal with one 2-drop. And then you have your hero power to deal with any 1-drop, right? So do you need the Arcane Missiles? Isn't it more important to get those minions in your hand?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I totally buy that. I feel like Mana Worm, as long as you have the Arcane Blast, is perfect in this matchup. Because if you just have a Mana Worm and then they coin 3 to you, and you just kind of have a little cry to yourself in response to that. But as long as you have the Arcane Blast to back it up, then Mana Worm is just such a huge deal on turn 1. So I definitely would have pushed a little bit harder for the Mana Worm, but now that he has the Sorcerer's Apprentice, now he has a solid mid-game minion as well in the Water Elemental. The heavy removal hand is actually not a terrible situation to be in here.
And it's a very hard choice right now for RDU. Do you want to play the Sorcerer's Apprentice with no effect? Just a vanilla 3/2 minion, because you will not play your removal spells for an empty board. You know that you don't have a 3-drop, so that's another problem that you're facing. So ideally, you would like to play the Sorcerer's Apprentice if your opponent is playing a 2-drop, and then you can have some value with it. Otherwise, you just want to play it after the Water Elemental.
Yeah, I'm really not sure about playing it. I don't think I do. It's weak to quick shot. It's weak to coin bow. You know, even coin kill command isn't the worst play in the world in terms of dealing with it, because that thing is a scary minion if, you know, arcane intellects and such start coming out if it's left unchecked on the board. So I definitely like holding onto it with the particular makeup of RDU's hand right now. You know, that Sorcerer's Apprentice has the potential to go off at any possible point in the near future.
Correct. I agree with that as well. I'm checking if Guukboii is playing with camels. No, he's not.
No, he has no camels. He's again is running one Infested Wolf, but he's running the double high main version. Also has one Unleash the Hounds pushed in there as well, and Carrion Grub, which is a card that was extremely common a couple of weeks ago, but we haven't seen a great deal of in people's lists in this tournament.
Yeah, that's true. Especially with the players that just switched the Carrion Grubs for camels, right?
Yeah, pretty
Especially
much.
they're quite good in the tournament environment when you can ban at least one class that plays one drops. And that is Zoo, an example. I mean, Warlock. Or just Shaman, right? I really like the Falmos just being played on board here, because we know that usually Hunter doesn't deal damage in one. Doesn't have a source of damage that deals just one damage.
Right.
So the sources are just basically 2 and 3. As you can see, the Falmos is eating a half of the board.
Yeah, Rag, not exactly what he's going to be looking for here, but he does have that water elemental that he'll be hoping to dodge a deadly shot here with. But yeah, even though that Blood Mage Thanos is tempting to hold on to because of how efficient it is with the Arcane Blast that you have already, definitely needs to cycle through his deck. He'll be looking to pick up things like Flame Waker at this point, which make his hand just go absolutely nuts at this point. He's already hit the mana where he can play Flame Waker, Sorcerer's Apprentice, and the entire left-hand side of his hand in one turn. So if he can hit a Flame Waker at any given point now, that'll be massive. But also he's just cycled through his deck now to that Azure Drake as well, which he's able to play on curve. That's a big deal as well.
By the way, this interesting attack with the bow tells that your opponent. Oh my god! Tells that your opponent has most likely has a quick shot in the hand or a kill command. Okay, so what are the chances of killing that Stranglehold Tiger? Quick!
Go! So you get 6 shots from the Arcane Missiles, 4 additional from the Flame Waker, so you have 10 shots, 10 50-50s to kill 5 health? Lothar's face.
I mean, this is not favorable enough.
Yeah, I mean, the longer you wait, the more you get to go off, because on top of that, you know, if you wait, you then get a target eventually to aim the Arcane Blast at as well, and then that just gets better for you, so... definitely, since he had just a strong development play there with the Azure Drake, that makes a ton of sense. And now the second Flame Waker comes into hand. How greedy do you want to be if you're RDU in this situation? I think you definitely have to go off, because this is a great turn to tempo out with your hand, because the big, slow, clunky, powerful play your opponent wants to make next turn is Savannah High Main. So the best thing you can do is not let them do that and make them react to your board.
And go wide.
Oh, yeah.
Go
for
wide
sure.
with the board. Your opponent is only playing one Unleash the Hounds, so the chances of him having that already in hand are just, let's say, small, and you have like insane amount of burst right now that will deal most likely with that Tiger. Most likely will deal with that Tiger and will buff the mana of them at the same time. I think you'll just keep the second Arcane Missiles there now. It doesn't matter if you deal additional 5 damage at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you have Flame Waker #2 in your hand, so these Arcane Missiles are great. You know, even if somehow, by some miracle, this board disappears, you have a turn 7 of Flame Waker, Arcane Missiles, plus whatever you draw, and then your turn 8 is Ragnaros, so keeping that Arcane Missiles in your hand, you know, secures that one turn you need now to bridge the gap until Ragnaros.
I mean, this is nuts, right? This turn was really powerful. Insanely powerful when you consider the Flame Waker being a spell power +2 spell power that can be divided into phase damage.
Yeah.
That is just insane value.
It is pretty crazy, but that single copy of Unleash the Hounds is coming into play here a little bit. He gets to clear up most of this board here using the bow as well. Flame Waker goes down, Sorcerer's Apprentice goes down, but like I said, Guukboii is not out of the woods yet. That is just about perfect in terms of a card to draw on this turn.
It's basically like ping, but you gain a body.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's ping with a free 3/2. Seems good.
4 damage, 6 damage to the face, and 4 damage from the Worm. That is 10 damage of Pyroblast. This turn was being played by just a 1 mana spell, basically.
Yeah, and again, a 0 healing deck that RDU is playing against here, so any point, even if this board was to magically disappear again on this turn, which is getting more and more unlikely the more removal that Hunter is being forced to commit on the previous turns. But somehow, if he loses his board yet again, any fireball draw is lethal. No such answers in hand for Guukboii. And RDU putting his money where his mouth is. This Tempo Mage.
I wanted to say that he needs to live up to his words, right? And it kind of starts to look like that. But the last obstacle is Shaman. Sorry.
Wow. Wow, what a crowd pleaser. Lothar, please. Come on, don't go over to the dark side here.
Don't worry, I'm not going to start any irrelevant ranks.
Wow. Oh, damn. Yeah, but anyway, you made the point, moving swiftly back to the game of Hearthstone, that RDU said specifically that this matchup against Shaman was favored. So he's going to... Oh, hi. So yeah, I'm coming back to the... He said that this matchup against Shaman specifically was favored, and that was one of the reasons why he was bringing the list to the tournament. So now that we're coming down to this last game, we're in the position where RDU has clawed all the way back to 2-2, and he now has what he says is a favored matchup to win the whole series, get himself a spot in top 8.
Yeah, and that is a really important match, and we're going off. What do we have here?
That's a hand. That's what that is.
Holy moly. That is a really good hand.
Certainly is.
So let's say you keep the coin, you don't play anything this turn. You don't want to play anything this turn, right?
You don't...
You might go for the Sorcerer's Apprentice and the Archon Missiles, but that is... I don't know.
You can also just risk the Cult Sorcerer here to an extent. It's kind of weak to Rockbiter and kind of weak to Lightning Bolt, but say...
And Abusive Surgeon that does...
Right, if the Abusive Sergeant were to come out, you have Sorcerer's Apprentice Arcane Missiles on the following turn, so that's actually not too bad.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, let's see. I mean, RDU has the perfect knowledge about his opponent's deck. And let's see if there's 2 Abusive Surgeons and 1. I'm curious myself. 2 Abusive Surgeons. So, 2 Abusive Surgeons, 2 Flamethrower Totems. Those are the cards that are kinda problematic for you. Oh, look at that.
Hey, there are those 2 Abusive Sergeants of which we speak. Also choosing to run the Crazed Alchemist tech in his deck as well. It's actually suddenly occurring to me, if there's one card that I feel we have not seen much of in this tournament, it's Doomsayer. Like, when was the last time you remember seeing a Doomsayer played in this tournament? Yeah.
I think some Arena Warlock had it.
Right, but that was like a long time ago yesterday, right? So this is a card that's been pretty much omnipresent for the whole of Standard since, you know, the Silence nerfs and such. And so seeing it so little in this tournament has just suddenly occurred to me as a bit weird. But the Crazed Alchemist techs, strong in the mirror for Shaman, but primarily targeted at Doomsayer, which is in Guukboii's list, but he's also running the kind of hybrid-y version where Tuskar Totemic and Thing from Below are in the mostly aggressive face Shaman.
I mean, I like the Crazed Alchemist because of the fact that you play Abusive Surgeons. Most likely it was the other way around. You play Crazed Alchemist, so you put in those Abusive Surgeons as well, because they present some form of combinations that I can use the Crazed Alchemist for, because they create a permanent buff. But at the same time, I feel like the Crazed Alchemist is also great in the Warrior matchup, but you can just switch the Bloodhoof Brave and be like, oh, sure, have 2 HP, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of applications. It's the same thing in Zoo, really, where you're playing it, you know, as a tech card against what your opponent's doing, but, you know, same thing, you can use it to turn all the buffs in the deck into permanent stats. You can you can do magic with Direwolves, where you turn the Direwolf buff into a permanent stat, and then it gets rebuffed by the Direwolf. So Crazed Alchemist is a very flexible card. It's a card that's always been on the fringes of being good enough, but suddenly everything's come together. The meta has come to a place where Crazed Alchemist is a pretty powerful card. And Guukboii has got a kind of a wealth of options in his hand right now as to how he wants to address this board state here.
They're very similar to each other, though.
Yeah, Flame Tongue Totem, but you can also just do Abusive Sergeant
and 1
face
Lightning Bolt.
And Lightning Bolt the minion, yeah.
I like that a lot. I feel that that's the best play because, first of all, you still have your Divine Shield and another buff, 2 buffs in your hand that can benefit from the fact that you have the Divine Shield, so you play around... Well, 3-drops are not that great in Tempo Mage anyway. So, but yeah, it's just good to have the Divine Shield on the board. Let's see what will be chosen by Guukboii. Goes for the, I would say, the option that we said.
Yeah, that Abusive Sergeant getting aimed, or the Argent Squire with the buff getting aimed straight at the dome. Lightning Bolt used to take out the minion, so he gives himself a little bit more resiliency against removal on the board with that Argent Squire retaining the Divine Shield, but still, there is potential for this to be swept out, but also it's kind of a low-pressure opening from the Shaman, really. You know, they have some board dominance, but nothing really to panic about, but RDU is going to try and take the initiative here. 4 shots to hit 3 shots on a minion. Does get it, and now has the uncontested Blood Mage Thalnos on the board. The only real way that this would be answered in a way that Guukboii would be even vaguely happy with would be Argent Horse Rider. You know, any removal spell you'd have to throw at that you don't feel good about at all, and there's no other minions that can, you know, take initiative on trades immediately from hand. So the Blood Mage Thalnos has a good chance of sticking around on the board now, and this is where the Tempo Mage can really start to go off.
Yep, that Water Elemental, it's not ideally played because it's turn 5 already, and the Doomhammer can be played right now. But who would play the Doomhammer if you don't, if you can't kill the the Water Elemental at the same turn, right? You would have to sacrifice the Trog and 2 attacks. That's a lot of resources, and you still can't use the Doomhammer in the upcoming turn. So the Water Elemental poses a really huge problem, and it will most likely eat a Lava Burst.
Yep.
And then the Abusive Surgeon will go down to the Healing Totem, so you can trade with the Water Elemental, because it poses just a huge threat to your entire deck, basically.
Gonna go for the Totem, doesn't get the spell damage, which would give him the immediate clean Lava Burst. So the Flame Tongue Totem does enable good trades here if he wants to go down that route, but I guess he's just deciding that trading with this Water Elemental is a route that Madless lies down, and he's just gonna make his board nice and wide, go face. Did pick up that Taunt Totem, which isolates the Water Elemental on the board. And he's just going to hold on to that Lava Burst for now. He knows he can always Lava Burst the Water Elemental on a future turn if he needs to. He can always bail out of this plan, and if all goes to plan and he never needs to commit to killing that Water Elemental, then great, we have a Lava Burst to shoot you in the face with later.
Yeah, that's a good point. The problem is, RDU has a really good answer to this.
He sure does. He has a good answer to a lot of things.
Well, wouldn't you consider... No, yeah, he's definitely right with holding on to that Arcane Intellect right now.
Yep.
Because the only other card that can be used in this scenario would be a second Arcane Blast.
Yeah, I mean, it looks odd. This looks like one of those draw last Ellie Giggle situations, but he was holding on because if he'd have, say, hit the Tunnel Trog twice, he would rather ping off the Tunnel Trog than draw cards.
Exactly.
So he was waiting for the reaction of the Arcane Missiles, or the Abusive Sergeant, for example. So since there was no real high priority ping target left after the Arcane Missiles, he decides to just go through and use the Arcane Intellect. So that sequencing actually correct, even though it looks weird from RDU.
And now this is a huge draw for Guukboii. Getting that air power totem to cleanly just kill the Water Elemental, and having access to a huge taunt in the way of the Trog, so can still dish damage out in the upcoming turns, is a huge advantage right now.
It sure is, but that mirror image is a big deal as well, because he can use that, in theory, to protect the minions of his choosing on the board. Could have gone with the Flame Waker. Looks like he's going to go with the Azure Drake and the Mana Worm instead, because there's only 2 sources of damage on the board right now. You've seen Abusive Sergeants used, you've seen Flame Tongue Totems used. So at this point, unless there's just a direct burn spell drawn to take out one of your minions, you feel confident that the minions you develop here are going to stick around on the board. Totem Golem is drawn, so that is in fact the case. He is going to get to keep this board, and if he picks up a cheap spell on the following turn now, Arcane Blast number 2, I think there's one left.
Yes, there's one Arcane Blast left, there's one Frostbolt left, and well, there can be a Flame Strike.
There could be a Flame Strike. Flame Strike would be absolute insanity right now, and you would never hear the end of it from RDU. He would just drop the mic, walk off stage.
Look at that.
Yeah,
but it's Arcane Blast.
That's fine. That's fine too.
Oh my god. This is ridiculous when it comes to like the power that can be now just played by the mage. This one Arcane Blast represents 8 points of damage, which is distributed among all those targets. This is just insane.
Yeah, so here's my question.
And that is very interesting.
Right, I mean, yeah, taking out the Taunt Totem first is almost 100% correct. I'm pretty sure of that. But what do you Arcane Blast? Do you take the pure value on the Totem Golem to reduce the total amount of targets? Or do you try and get rid of the big problem on the board, which is the 5/5, by shooting that for 4? He chose to go for the Totem Golem, gets 1 shot on the thing from below, which means that he can take it out cleanly with the Azure Drake. But let's live in the world where we did it the other way around. Say we Arcane Blast the 5/5 for 4, and then we hit it once, same situation. Then the Azure Drake has value trade into the Totem Golem, and you still have a 4/1 Drake on the board.
I would need to make a screenshot and talk about it on stream for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So, one turn too late, but it's still
Drop
amazing.
the mic!
It's still amazing. Cleans up entire board, deals 4 damage.
And
well, you can sacrifice one of the Flame Wakers, right?
Would you rather have the Mana Worm? You want the clock of the Mana Worm over the potential removal power of the Flame Waker?
Let's count how many spells would you actually... The Flame Waker always gets better damage than the Mana Worm? Because it's always +1 over the Mana Worm over time.
Well, if you just draw minions for the rest of the game, then the Mana Worm gets more damage.
That's true.
Yeah.
But we count here if you get spells. But the spells are really getting low on count. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like RDU likes the clock, but yeah, that Flame Strike draw was, one turn too late from being perfect, but still a great turn to draw it. And again, this is what RDU's been saying the whole time. He said, every time I drew this card in practice, I felt like it was good. So again, top decked it there on a particular turn where it wasn't perfect, but still a great draw, still providing with a great answer. And the hits keep on coming. Fireball will allow him to chew through this board nice and easily. But he does also just have value trades presented to him where he can hold on to the Fireball for face as well.
Quick glance at Shaman from Guukboii. Is there any kind of answer to 1 HP minions or 2 HP minions? Let's see. There's a
One Flame Juggler.
1 Flame Juggler, 2 Argent Horse Riders.
Finley.
Finley.
Yeah.
That's it. And Doomhammer, of course, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, there are no other answers.
Right, I think if you value trade here and he draws Doomhammer and then just hits your 2 minions and you still have a Fireball in hand, you're probably okay with that situation, right? Yeah. So, looks like RDU is gonna...
Oh my god,
wow!
What the hell is happening? This was ridiculous.
Buddy.
And yes, you need to kill that totem to play around Flaming Totem, Rockbiter weapon, and that's it.
Yeah, Abusive Sergeants have gone, so those are out of the window, but still... Just taking the clear up here makes sense, but there is the Finley that we talked about as a source of 1 damage, so if he can pick up Mage Hero power here...
That would be the perfect scenario.
And here's the dilemma. Everyone else says, okay, of course you totem first, because you have so much mana available to you, but there's always the chance to get life tap. So in this situation, he can still life tap if he picks it, but the point in this situation in particular is, would you even take life tap if you get it? Answer apparently is yes. He still has 3 mana available to him now, and I believe that is a Horse Rider we just drew. So that actually worked out pretty perfectly for Guukboii on that turn.
That was nuts from both players, right?
Yeah, it really was.
Getting that 1 of 2 Horse Riders in this situation when he still had the option to just take Fire Blast and just kill it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, but I think he appreciated the fact that he needs to get through to Doomhammers and Rockbiters sooner rather than later because, he's not beat second Horse Rider right now.
And a Horse Rider and a Rockbiter. So he's able to clear the board.
Wow. That is pretty spectacular, but RDU is still on a second Fireball draw at any point to win this game. He has, Yogg-Saron Madness that can go off. He has Ragnaros that can end the game as well, so... His deck density is pretty high right now in terms of ways to end the game, but that sequence of draws, Horse Rider into Rockbiter weapon, has allowed the Shaman to get back onto this board. Oh, Faceless Summon is huge, though.
Okay, so M-Gang boss. It's not really that important, right?
Yeah, that'll do.
That's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, 3-4 is pretty much premium stats for a 3-drop, so that's about as good as you can reasonably expect, apart from the... outlier case scenarios, the Injured Blade Master, the Mookla, 3-4 is about as much as you can realistically hope for, so...
Well, the Spectator unfortunately glitched out, but no relevant draw was being drawn by Guukboii, and it looks like RDU actually had some point with that mage, right?
He certainly did, and I'm sure we are just about to hear about it. He drew the Fireball for good measure in the end, but that Tempo Mage... The RDU put so much faith in, came all the way back in the end, from 0-2 down to 3-2 up. RDU is going to book a spot in our top 8, where he will go through to take on Ball Control. Ball Control said that he was happy to see that matchup coming, having already defeated RDU in the Swiss.
Yeah, well, then it will be a very interesting match. We had seen this match in Swiss already, because RDU was playing against Guukboii and won 3-1. This one was way closer. Because he had to make a full sweep, reverse sweep with the mage. Interesting enough, this is the first time I can say this Tempo Mage is kind of newish, right?
Sure.
because it has some different iterations when it comes to cards. Nimsh, you're back.
Yeah, I'm back, and what a match to see because you know after RU lost the two games versus Rogue and also losing a favorable matchup, I was thinking, hey man, is he going to get 3-0'd by Rogue at this point of the game where he felt like his lineup is so good? But seeing the Tempo Mage shine and actually win all those games, it also in an incredible fashion, and Flamestrike being so good. I just want to hear from RDU. RDU, how good was that Flamestrike?
I fucking love Tempo Mage. I don't know. I'm still shaking. Like I did not expect. I played pretty badly. I think last game. I mean I made some small mistakes, but
can you name those? Because you know we're talking about like every iteration here, and what are the mistakes that you have seen?
Yeah, we've seen like 12 misplays. Can you name them?
12?
No, we're joking.
Did I play that badly? No, but seriously, there were like small things. But I should have taken more time. But I don't know. I was like very. I tried to get in the zone, and I got in the zone, and then I was like very demoralized because I lost the first game that I was not supposed to lose. Then I lost the second one that I was not supposed to lose, and then I managed to like win with Tempo Mage. I mean, Tempo Mage was my best deck this tournament. I think if I write down the wins, I should have like 95% win rate.
What? That's
with it.
ridiculous.
Like, I literally like just 3-0'd and 2-0'd everybody with Tempo Mage. Like before the tournament, I knew that Tempo Mage is gonna be like insane. And I managed to like call the tournament meta like almost perfect. Like everybody that I played against, I felt like I'm favored lineup-wise, which is rarely happened to me, even in LHS. So Tempo Mage was definitely a good call, and I don't know. I still shouldn't have won that series. Holy.
Yeah, that was a really good series. You said you felt favored lineup-wise, and your next opponent is going to be Board Control, who also feels like he's favored against you. How do you feel against Board Control?
Well, I played against both Guukboii and Board Control in the Swiss rounds. I beat Guukboii in the Swiss also with Tempo Mage because of the Tempo Mage.
Nice.
And against Board Control,
I think Sotul said you lost.
Yeah. Well, some things happen that they normally don't happen. So
like you losing, that doesn't normally happen, right?
No, like him having like double whirlwinds for like all my stuff, but this will probably not happen tomorrow. Also, like I'll take more time tomorrow and I'll be in the zone and more focused. While in the Swiss, I didn't focus that much against Board Control since I was already through and I wanted to like preserve my energy for this game.
Sure.
And I think it helped because I already started playing a bit sloppy in like the last game here. And if I would have like used my energy against Board Control, like all my energy, then I would play like badly in the games that actually mattered if I played really well. Like the first Tempo Mage game against Rogue was very, very hard. Like, I had some hard decisions there.
You need some stamina potions then.
Yeah. Oh.
So I just want to talk to you quickly about the Flame Strike. You drew it one turn too late. Essentially, it was still really good on the turn you drew it, but that turn before where there was like 5/5, 3/4 totems and like a tunnel troll, you drew the Arcane Blast, but if you'd have drawn the Flame Strike on that turn, you had two Flame Wakers on board. Like, I get the feeling you would have literally like, just like stood up, walked over here, grabbed the microphone, just like, yeah, I'm a god. Flame Strike is the best card in Hearthstone.
Like seriously, like I think two Flame Strikes is a really good tech choice, and that's what I did for this tournament. Like I knew like Zoo and Face Shaman are the best two decks. I knew banning Zoo is the best strategy. Then I talked with Taj and I practiced with Taj for like 2 weeks for his prelims, and I knew Camo Hunter is like insane if you manage to ban Zoo. And then having 3 decks, I just needed to find the 4th one. So I used every single time resource I had to like make the best 4th deck, and I just teched that Tempo Mage like so well. Like I practiced like every single card, and like I figured out Flame Strike is way too good to run only 1 or 0. Like I was very surprised when I saw Hotform's list. As a matter of fact, that kind of like made me a bit sad because when Hotform released the list, I already had my Tempo Mage finished, and I was like, oh my, if people realize Tempo Mage is actually good for DreamHack, I might actually have a hard time. If people keep playing Hunter, Warrior, Kutun Druid, Shaman, Zoo, I just ban their Zoo and beat their other 4 decks with Tempo Mage, then then I'm just going to win DreamHack, so I don't know. But luckily, Hotform played like a very weird list with like Acolytes and Torches, which might make sense in like Ladder, but even there, I still think Flame Strike is just way too good not to run it. Maybe you
Torches are just really slow, right? That's the problem.
The thing is that you can cut the Faceless Summoner, you can cut the Ragnaros, but you cannot cut the Flame Strikes or the Flame Strike. You need at least one. It's like the best card in the deck. Because like you have so much early game, and then you need to top deck big minions. Hot Firm's deck is relying around top decking Acolytes and then drawing from Acolytes, which is way too greedy for like especially LHS.
Right, or just ripping straight burn, right? Like you just put Roaring Torches in your deck and then draw Roaring Torches. Like that works too.
Yeah, but it's more like a board control deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I like the look of your list. I mean, I've always been against Flame Strike in Tempo Mage because it was so early game dominant, but I don't think it is necessarily like completely early game dominant these days. So like there are decks like Shaman that are going to get board control against you and you're going to need a Flame Strike at some point. So still think 2 might be a bit ambitious, but it's serving you well in this tournament, so I don't really have too much to dispute about it, but well played. You have made it through to the top 8. You're 1 step closer.
Yeah, hey, if it works, it works, right? And for me, it's amazing that RDU, like, when the last Hero Standing was the main format, you grew as a pro player. You were super good with lineups and everything, and right now playing this last Hero Standing tournament as the previous DreamHack champion, DreamHack Summer again, you are in the top 8 already, so hopefully you will make it all the way through and actually take the tournament. One last question from me is, do you think like you have an advantage because you know the exact list of your opponents now?
I don't think I have like a big advantage. I'm pretty good at memory, so I can like memorize all their lists, but that doesn't really help me that much. It doesn't put me in a disadvantageous position anyways, but what you said earlier about LHS, yeah, I might not be like the best mechanical player all around, but I think I'm really good at forging a good lineup for like any kind of tournament, and I have the experience to like usually not choke like I almost did here, but I think it was okay. It was not a choke. Let's not call it a choke. Like, I watched the previous series, and yeah, they were like way more misplaced than probably I did.
Oh, calling out. I like that.
Yeah.
We need cocky players. We need some storylines, right?
Hey, everything he said so far, he's backed it up, right? He
Yeah,
said the Tempo Mage was OP. He said
True.
that Flame Strike was the best card. We've just seen both of that established in the series. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually it's not the best. Hearthstone is not the best game to like call out other players for like making misplays, but we are just like in a friendly environment. We can have some banter, right? Let's not just like up-talk everybody, because like if everybody's good, then nobody's good, right?
Yep.
I'm still waiting for my 12 misplays, but Lothar, do you have any other questions to RDU?
No, I think like RDU already filled a portion of making a YouTube video,
Yeah.
so we can just go to a break and that's it, right?
Definitely. Guys, we still have one more match for you. The next match is going to be Frozen versus Cynics. Stay tuned for the last match where we have the last player going to the top 8. We'll be right back.